Good afternoon, Kaja, Bryx, Racjonalista.tv. Today I have a pleasure to talk with Deborah Hyde, who is the editor-in-chief of the Skeptics magazine. Hi Deborah, how are you?
Hello, how are you doing?
It's great to have you with us over Skype for now, but we will be very lucky to see you here in Wroclaw in September.
I'm looking forward to it.
I must say that going through the topics of the European Skeptics Congress, when I've seen the title of your speech, I found it the most stunning out of all of them. So the Poltergeist...
Stunning good or stunning bad?
No, great, actually amazing. I can't wait until I have a chance to hear you out, because I've never actually imagined that someone would be speaking about Poltergeist of Wrocław. To be honest, I didn't even know the story. So could you tell us a little bit about how you came up with this idea?
Well, I thought when I was thinking about what to say, I was thinking it would be far better if there was something that was a really local story. And it was a little bit of confusion for me because Wrocław throughout its history has been known by different names, including Breslau. And a lot of the historical stuff relates to the city known as Breslau. So I've known for years about the Restless shoemaker Breslau, and then I thought, okay, that's Wrocław, that's fantastic, that'll be relevant. So it can be something that skeptics are interested in, with why people believe in folklore, why they believe in ghosts, and it relates to the place that we'll all be.
And how often do you do this kind of paranormal investigation quests?
Oh, well, when I have the time, which I haven't had very much recently, I do like to go to places. There's something sort of, I think it's something for human beings actually, about touching things and being in places. You know, we have a kind of this connection to places where it's very, very interesting to be in, for example, the Tower of London in London. You know, it's just a cool place. And a couple of years ago, I went to Rhode Island, which was a place I wanted to go to for a long time because there was a vampire revenant sort of a folklore associated with that. I made a short video about it. I also made a short video, which I haven't put up on the internet yet, but will be up soon, about one of the classic vampire cases from the 1700s, and I'm gonna say his name with a dreadful English accent now. It was Peter Plajonovich, and the people there were telling me how to say the name properly. It was Peter Plajonovich, I think. So yeah, it meant, it means a huge amount to go to places and to see the environment where they've happened. And I've known about this story for so long that it was really, really nice to be able to have an excuse to be able to visit Wrocław and see where it was.
And why do you think people believe in ghosts and vampires? Why is it something popular even in our digital world right now?
Well, with regard to ghosts, I honestly think it's hard not to, because it's very, very difficult to look at someone as a lump of meat after they've died. I mean, it's a whole personality, so many associations for us. And then somebody passes on and you think, oh, well, they've gone. You know, and that's a very difficult thing. For most people, it seems to be natural to believe that there is a body and that there is a spirit and that the spirit can survive beyond the body. Now, even if you and I as skeptics don't believe that, I think it's natural to human beings, and most people in most environments have operated in that way. And that the folklore, sort of generates these ideas. In general, where you get folklore is where people have got some kind of unfinished business. So they've died prematurely, or there's something remains to be done, and that's how you get ghosts that come back. And if you get ghosts that come back that need to feed, then you've got vampire-type creatures, and an awful lot of folklore has vampire-type creatures, similar to the ones that we see from Eastern European folklore.
But the ghosts of the family members, this is something, yes, much more natural and much more easy to explain, that people think that they see their dead grandparents, etc. But the scary ghosts, all these stories about demons, those ghosts the places that are haunted, and all of that. Where does this come from?
That tends to be associated with difficult times. So Eastern European vampires, for example, you can explain pretty much by a combination of two factors. One is epidemic death, and the other is misunderstanding of decomposition. When people die, they don't always decompose in exactly the same way. Mm-hmm. And people who aren't educated about this can go back, see a corpse in pretty good shape a month later and think that somehow the person is still around, that they're still there. And bear in mind, I think the interesting thing about ghosts is that we, as modern people, have very different stories about them than our ancestors did. And if ghosts really existed and they were really one thing, then the stories would tend to be consistent because they would be behaving in a consistent way. Mm-hmm. What it tells us is about us because we're creating the stories. So in a modern sense, when we don't really have an awful lot to be worried about, we might have helpful ghosts, we might have ancestors coming back, we might have fairies who grant wishes. It's very, very benign, supernatural sort of environment. Whereas for our ancestors, things that were on the other side but would stay there were often quite threatening, and they would tend to come up in times of epidemic or times when things were uncertain. The alternative version of that is ancestors, where you have a sense, sort of monotheological systems for religion, quite unusual. You tend to have people who see spirits all around them, and for them, their ancestors are kind of someone on their own side in the environment. So you could pray to your ancestors to help you with things, and they're kind of they're immediate, they're close to you.
And how can you, as a skeptic, convince someone who believes in ghosts that it's actually not true?
That's a good question, because it isn't easy. I mean, there are an awful lot of very compelling reasons to believe in ghosts. People want to, and especially if they've had experiences of their own. They say, well, how do you explain that? I think for an awful lot of people, if you explain to them that as human beings, we're not as good at being witnesses as we think we are, I think that's the key thing. Because most people say, I saw that, I heard that, I was definitely right. Me and my friend both saw so-and-so. And when you can explain to them in a very procedural kind of way about how we have cognitive biases, about how we hallucinate even when we're perfectly sane, about how we miss things that are there, and we routinely get things wrong. We're optimized for survival, not truth. So as human beings, we see a very narrow bandwidth of all of the information out there, and most of the time we're kind of right, but we're a bit hyper alert to the idea that there's something in the environment, and that hyper alertness can extend to seeing Jesus in a piece of toast and also to seeing a ghost, neither of which are actually.
Do you think that if someone actually believes in ghosts, or especially if had a personal experience, even if you manage to show a lot of examples of how our perception deceives us and how we have the perception bias, do you think that person could actually still say that, well, okay, maybe I'm wrong about many things, but this I'm sure that I experienced? And do you think there is actually any other way to prove that the ghost is not real? Or if someone is convinced, then it's never going to be challenged, really?
Oh, I think people change their mind, and this is interesting because it's that's a personality dimension, actually. Openness to experience. Are you really open to all sorts of experiences, and also to intellectually changing your mind about things? The one that's really made a difference to me over the years is telling people about sleep paralysis, because so many people you meet, I mean, 1/3 of people have had some hideous paralysis experience. And they're quite relieved when you tell them that, oh, it's just a sleep glitch. In those cases, I find that you can change people's minds. But I think that for skeptics, it is worth bearing in mind that if you do any public speaking, and a lot of us do, with people who don't believe, that quite often you're never going to change the mind of the person who you're speaking directly to, because they have, they're very, very invested in their own point of view, especially if they're speaking in front of a crowd to defend that point of view. But you do stand a chance of defending, of changing the mind of the people in the middle, the people who haven't made their minds up yet. So for that reason, I think when we're public debating, it's well worth always being reasonable and polite and stating our case, because there are people who are undecided.
And how do you challenge the people who claim that they are ghost specialists actually, and they help, talk with ghosts, or actually help to eliminate the demons that are haunting the house, etc.?
That's a very difficult one, because quite often they're charging money for it, so they're not going to admit that there is something strange about this. Again, I think that's a matter of, you can come up with traps. I mean, for mediums, you can go in and, the tricks that they use are very clear, and magicians can learn them. In fact, magicians are usually better at them than mediums are. So you can pick that apart and show people what's going on. In general, I think you've got, you can go through something, you can point out what this person has done. It's a recipe, it's a way of, it's an act, it's an entertainment act. And go through our biases, go through how often they can make very generic statements indeed. But in general, I think the people who make money out of those who are very vulnerable because somebody's recently died, I think they will always be with us. There's an important point here, which is that, there are some churches that do this. One of my biggest points is that the difference between religion and superstition isn't there really. And we give religion so much respect that we don't give superstition. And you have some churches that will talk about connecting with the other side, or healing, providing healing services. So one practical thing that can be done on a legal level is to make sure that any belief side of a belief system and the charity side of the belief system are completely separated. And if somebody wants to worship, then they should do that without tax breaks. If somebody wants to run homeless shelter, then fine, treat it as a charity. But there are some very scurrilous organisations that are saying that they can heal people, or saying they can put people in touch with the dead, that they can remove demons, they can exorcise you. And they're doing this tax-free, and I think that's really, really bad. We should be very, very clear about when people are getting paid for these services, that it's a commercial transaction, that it's a transaction that you can't even prove has happened, and they certainly shouldn't be getting religious tax breaks for it.
Are there many organizations like this in UK?
Skeptical organisations?
No, I meant those that the religious ones that claim to heal people and so on. I know there are a lot of them in US, but how does it look like in Europe?
In the UK, there is one church I know that, I know the name of one, which I'm not going to repeat for obvious reasons, but there are others. There are others as well that they do offer to exercise people, and you can end up with money for this. I find it ridiculous in this day and age the Catholic Church still actually believes in exorcism. Only under very rigorous circumstances, but it's absolutely stunning that people with psychiatric conditions would still be subject to this kind of treatment. But yes, there are some fundamentalist churches in London that I'm aware of, which will exorcise people, including children.
Well, that's not very optimistic, but...
And also, the thing is, I mean, we all love our skepticism, and especially if you're interested in ghosts and stuff, it's very entertaining. It's really cool. I love my subject. I love going through it in a historical context, but it is serious too, because it still goes on.
Well, thank you very much for this interview. I'm looking forward to hearing your speech in Wrocław, and I do hope we can invite you also here to our studio in person to ask you a few more questions after your lecture. So thank you very much. Have a lovely evening and see you soon in Wrocław.
You too. See you very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.